Namaste. Today we have a subject, emotions and feelings. And it's a subject that is central to understanding how we become karmically attached to actions and reactions in life. People think of karma as, well, you do something, you get the same thing back. But how does that, and we think of it more in terms of the thing itself rather than the energy, the understanding of its underlying process, the way that it works. And we're used to perceiving living in such a way as that we think that our emotional process is the only process that's available to us. And we don't quite understand the connection between the emotions, feelings, and the soul's feelings, intuitive perception. So we're going to hear from Kriyanandaji on the subject. This is really quite an amazing clip. It's a little longer than I normally would play, but it's really got a very clear description of the subject that we're talking about. So we'll have a look at it.
Swamiji, a lot of people suffer from emotions. Can you talk a little bit about how to transform emotions?
Well, I'm glad you put it that way, because most people say how to overcome negative emotions, but negative and positive alternate constantly. We have to go beyond emotions. The true state of consciousness is citta, which means feeling. Feeling is intuition, and feeling is beyond emotion. But emotion is disturbed feeling. It's waves on the surface of feeling. And all of those are centered in the heart. So the first thing to do, we have to overcome both negative and positive emotions. Because to feel good or to feel badly is still to feel in the dream, as though the dream were real. What I mean by good or badly, I mean anger versus forgiveness and all the, just on an emotional level, reactive level. Reaction are based on the Ida and Pingala in the spine. And actually it's related to the breathing. So that when something that you see in this world is, you react negatively to it, you sigh. When you see something that you're happy about, let's say a beautiful scene or a good ice cream cone or whatever it might be, like that. And so children, babies, when they're born, they cry. Before taking they have to breathe in before they can breathe out, but their first gesture is a cry. They've got to deal with matter all over again. Well, anyway, what we need to do is concentrate our feeling in the heart and direct that feeling upward toward the brain. When that feeling can be directed toward superconsciousness, then it goes beyond emotion. Emotions in themselves are not good. We need to go beyond that, because they're what keep us in Maya, in delusion.
Swamiji, how does a feeling become an emotion? At what stage?
Feeling is the reaction. When you see something and you react to it, you can see a beautiful sunset, you can hear a barking dog and be irritated by it. Your reaction is what causes you to feel. You get angry or you feel soothed, but it's still an emotion. You feel fearful or you feel reassured. It's still an emotion. If you go to the point of faith, that's not an emotional, because it's not a reaction. So feeling must get away from the aspect of reaction. Action and reaction are tied into the breath. And so when you feel good about something, you inhale, and when you feel badly, you sigh. And we need to learn that really, when you see a beautiful sunset, it's not the outer sunset that you're enjoying, it's the ability to enjoy it in yourself. A turtle could look at a sunset and if it thought anything, it might wonder if it was good enough to eat. But he wouldn't react in the same way we do. We have these emotions which are much more sophisticated, and there's an interesting and fun thing in a novel I wrote. It's called The Time Tunnel. And toward the end of that, they're up in Satya Yuga in a higher age, and during the action, suddenly a UFO lands. And it's not from another planet, it's from this planet sent out to other planets. And when this person alights, he's a friend of the person who's showing the children around in that area. And he speaks about a planet where people are all basically kindly and good and sattvic, or uplifting in their consciousness, uplifted in their consciousness. And he asks this man, well, what do they do for excitement? What do they do? Well, they serve. And they try to serve the lower animals because there's no one else to serve. They don't need service. And so he saw a little child of 6 trying to give its bliss to a worm. And the worm sort of raised up and shivered. And that raising up is what I'm talking about, the positive reaction. And when you don't like a thing, it isn't the thing that you don't like, it's your reaction that makes it that way. So the first and the most important thing in dealing with this world is always to understand that it begins with you. When people irritate you, it's not they who are irritating you, it's you who are irritating yourself by your reaction. And when you're happy with things, it's not those things that are making you happy, you're making yourself happy.
But Swami, it seems like some people have a gift for irritating one.
Well, you know, there was a saint, I think I told this on this program before, who used to constantly be criticized by somebody. And one day that person died, and a disciple of the saint's came and said, "Your master, your enemy, this critic has died." And the saint said, "Oh, I'm so sad. My best friend, my critic, who the only one who was willing to tell me my faults, he's gone. What'll I do now?" Oh. But it was all in his reaction. So, in fact, if people have that particular gift, and of course, some people are experts and geniuses, but you should be thankful for them. And anybody who really gets your goat, thank him. Because you have to learn to realize that there is nothing in what he's doing that's causing you that upset. It's in yourself. You're allowing your ego to be affected. Give up your ego to God. Just tell God it's all a part of your dream. I don't mind what you do to me. And that then becomes a question also of the sufferings that you undergo. Give them to God. You'll find that you can endure just about anything, in fact, anything.
Swamiji, you talked about the breath and inhalation
Yes.
when we're excited and so on. Is the breath a key to trying to control or work with those emotions?
The breath is the breathing in the astral spine, in the body that you have when you keep with you when you leave your physical body. The breathing there's no air in the astral world. The breathing is in these currents in the spine, the Ida and the Pingala, as they're called in the Sanskrit. And the physical breath is allied to that Ida and Pingala, so that when you inhale, the energy takes at least a spurt upward, and when you exhale, the energy takes a spurt downward.
Swami, this is a very odd question, but in this world, our breathing has a certain rhythm, so many breaths per minute or whatever. Does that movement continue in the astral world, in the astral body?
It continues to the extent that you have retained your emotions. When you go beyond that, because you don't become a saint just by dying. Mm-hmm. So when you go to the higher regions, people have risen above emotion. But ordinarily in the astral world, your emotions are actually much stronger. So people feel more emotional highs, but also more emotional lows.
Going back to the breath for a second, is it possible for us to consciously slow the breath and then help overcome an emotional state?
Kriya Yoga is a technique that my guru taught in America. There are many Kriyas. This is the Kriya Yoga of Lahiri Mahashaya of Benares. In that Kriya, you concentrate in the spine and deliberately try to bring the energy in the spine and make the breath slower in rhythm with that breath, with that rising and lowering current. And in that way, you slowly can bring the breath to a halt. Finally, in a state of superconsciousness, you don't breathe, and your mind is completely equal.
Swami, speaking of superconsciousness, can you describe that state? Because I think that's a bit unfamiliar for a lot of people.
Well, that's the normal state. The conscious and the subconscious are the abnormal state. This world is an abnormal state. And your higher self, your soul, that part of you which is which comes from God, that is superconscious. Superconscious is intuitive. When it comes down to a conscious level, it breaks that knowledge up into rational pieces, and you have to put things together logically, but there's no longer that flow there.
So it sounds like the essence of our self-awareness is feeling, and that feeling goes outward in emotion. Does that sound right?
Yes. If it's going outward, it's going into emotions. The inward feeling is its intuition.
And what makes it go outward?
Reactions, desires. Because desire too is a reaction. If you can see this world and not be touched by it. You know, I met a saint in Puri many years ago. He was 132 years old, so he must have achieved something to live that long. But he said to me, "You shouldn't enjoy anything." And I said, "You mean not even enjoy a sunset?" "No, nothing." What a dry approach. My guru taught us to enjoy everything with the joy of God. So always discriminate that your joy is here, not there. And I think that's a much more beautiful path. I can't negate the other. It's after all, it did produce a saint, but I don't like it. It's dry.
So one doesn't exactly enjoy suffering particularly, though.
You can enjoy suffering. Look at the novels that come out. Well, look at World War II. The novels that came out after that were, most of them probably, many of them certainly, were all about the war. You'd think that would be the one thing people would want to get away from. And people remember, some gloatingly almost, as if I've suffered more than you have. There are two sides to everything. In suffering, there's also a certain amount of joy. There's excitement, there's pleasure. You can't get away from it because duality means that there are two sides to every coin. And so, when you feel happy in an emotional way, there's also pain, like that Spanish song, Bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Kiss me as though this were the last time ever. And because there's always in that full worldly fulfillment that thought, I'm going to lose it. I can't keep this, or will I keep it? And that fear that you'll lose it. So in every emotion, its opposite is already always inherent. And even great pain, somehow there's a level. Benvenuto Cellini, he was a great Italian artist, sculptor, and he was thrown into a dungeon by the Pope. And he said later, if you want to know what joy is, arrange to be thrown in a dungeon, have nothing but a damp mattress, rats running all over the floor. You can only read the Bible 1 hour and then you can pray the rest of the day. He said, arrange to be in that situation and you'll know what joy is.
I think what I just heard Swamiji say is that we all need to move to prison. But what he really said along the way here is that we have sent ourselves to the prison of limitation, believing that emotion consciousness is all that is the reality of life. and that there is nothing else. And so we live for emotional ups and downs. And if you look at the movies, you see every emotion, it's exaggerated. And the movie stars are given the awards because they have done the best at exaggerating their emotions. And it's really comical the way that people act in modern television and in the movies. I mean, every love story is when the kids got, and it was like Greenanji was saying, it's like, if I don't do this intensely, I have to do it intensely because it's going to end, and I might lose it. He gave the key when he talked about this, the energy flow in the spine, and that emotions are when we relate to life outwardly through our ego, personality, senses, and the mind reasoning things, trying to figure things out mentally, versus turning our awareness inward, connecting to intuitive perception. Remember, Yoganandaji said, the center of the universe for you is a point of intuitive perception within your own heart. Within our center, we say happiness is within. It's within that point of intuitive perception. So now we're not used to, we might get those times in life when we suddenly kind of know something. And we say, well, you had a hunch. You had, or you think that you got some insight. But through the practice of meditation, what we do is we reverse our attention from that outside way of relating to life, and we calm the mind and become aware of the inside perception. And through the practice of Kriya, what we're doing is equalizing this up and down. We're used to going up and down. We're used to being stimulated. We're calming it. We're becoming calm and interiorized. And then we become connected to, as Kriyanandaji again said, that state which is our natural state. The state of outward consciousness, as most people experience it, is not our natural state. It's our common state, but not our natural state. Just because everybody's doing it doesn't make it the highest truth. It makes it the common truth. So it's quite common for people to be upset when things don't go the way that they want them to go. But that doesn't mean that that's the way you have to react. We can react, make a choice about how I choose to react to life. And there's a key practice that we need to develop, which is to, as Kriyanandaji said, in the end he said, enjoy with the joy of God. Enjoy with your intuitive perception connection to spirit. So if things don't go well, instead of reacting outwardly, emotionally, redirect the energy to your inward connection, and you can actually feed your connection to intuitive calmness by taking the energy that was going to go out intensely. Let's say something really terrible happens. Instead of taking it out into tears and anger and frustration, take that same energy, redirect it up the spine, up and out the spiritual line, offer it to God. Offer it to that flow. Send it out into the universe. And ride that flow in communion with peace and bliss, instead of riding it outwardly into karmic confusion. When we talk about how can you live in life without creating karma? Remember, karma is the creation of an emotional reaction to life. So if you stop reacting to life based on emotion, you start redirecting everything and connecting it and offering it up. Remember, Krishna says in the Gita, offer everything to me. That's not just your actions. Well, it is all of your actions as related to every life experience. So then we don't live seeking God, we live with God. We live for God, but for God that's present in all circumstances. We take it in and up the spine. When we practice meditation, we are learning that inner mechanism, that inner communication system. We're reawakening that ability in us. It's dormant in most people. They don't know how to access it. Because they don't experience it, they think it doesn't exist. But when we calm the mind, we automatically start to feel more peaceful. And the more peaceful we feel, we create a circle of deepening calmness. Simultaneously, we increase our energy flow, increase our concentration, increase our awareness, rather than diminishing it in subconsciousness. So, through the yoga practices, what we do is we begin to take every life experience in and up instead of down and out. And it's the down and out that creates these karmic connections that keeps us coming lifetime after lifetime. And we have to learn these lessons. How many dogs have we heard bark over the years of our lives, and what was our reaction to them? And first, you have to be aware that you're even reacting. Most people don't think about it. They don't realize that they had a rejection of that barking. Instead of accepting it, offering it up, and recognizing that this is God's creation. We are not needed to judge it. We don't need to be elated by it or upset by it. What we need to do is transcend what it looks like on the outside and connect to what it really is on the inside. If you go to the movies, what do you see? You go to a movie and it will have highs and lows. If it doesn't have highs and lows, goods and bads, happies and sads, it won't be a good movie. But when you come out of the movie, if you had a nice ride and it resolved in a way that you found acceptable, then you go, wow, that was a good movie. But if you were acting in the movie, if you were really acting the part, you'd be really angry when the angry part was going on, and you'd really be excited when the exciting part is going on. Well, this is what we do. We dive into our emotional response to life, and we think that it's actually happening the way that we're acting it, when in fact we're acting just the way the actors do on the screen. But we don't remember signing up to act in the movie of life. So we've completely forgotten it. But the proof of this is not that you believe it so, that you practice this interconnection. This is why yoga is a science. Because when we practice these techniques of inwardly turning the mind, of focusing, calming the breath, focusing at the spiritual eye, or raising the energy in the spine, making that offering, making that connection to universal superconscious potential, and then we begin to experience it. And once you've learned to use the mechanism and experience that connection, then in the beginning, of course, it's not strong. So you can easily be drawn back into the emotions. But over time, you build your awareness and ability to use that interconnection. And that's when you see the saints who are unruffled by any experience. It really doesn't matter. I mean, when I look at Kriyanandaji's life and I see all of the physical problems that he had with his body, that was a full-time job, just keeping his body going. And he did 6 or 8 other full-time jobs of accomplishment in his life while that was taking place. Why? Because he wasn't caught up in the emotional rejection of those problems. He just basically ignored them as much as he could. And he never gave them the power over his happiness or his ability to accomplish what God the other things that God had given him to do. And he did it at such a high level that, of course, we are all challenged to realize that we can accomplish this in our lives just the way that he accomplished it in his. So this process is essential to understand and to utilize it as the system for transcending the limitations of living on planet Earth from an emotional state of consciousness. It was also interesting when he talked about the astral realm and how the emotional, well, now he's talking about the lower, the middle to lower astral realms, because in the higher astral realms, to get there, like Sri Teshwar talked about in Brahmya Loka, you have to be at a very high state of calmness to go there. So, but why would people think that the heavenly realms are so nice if they weren't experiencing some level of enjoyment? But according to one's nature, you can experience, and remember, emotional response is different than physical experience as well. So when we, we're attached to the physical experience that we have. We like the feeling of a full belly. We like the taste of the foods that we like. And we're attached to those things. We're attached to the heaviness of physical life. And we need to lighten up. And this is so we create a more sattvic consciousness. And as we do that, we're raising our energy and experiencing the more and more subtle source consciousness of universal presence. As we do that, when we say we are uplifting our consciousness. And as we do that, we will experience the superconscious reality of intuitive perception. And it's not that we won't perceive the senses, but instead of them causing us to go down and out and create attachments, we can use them to free us. We can literally use the life, the outward life that we have, to energize, motivate, and focus our inner connection to God. And then, as we saw in Yoganandaji's life and Kriyanandaji's life, how they lived with God. They lived with the consciousness that God was doing all things through them, and then they enjoyed life with the joy of God, meaning they enjoyed life from God's calm, expanded perspective to the extent that each of us are able to, rather than the limiting emotional system that we're used to perceiving. So this is a very clear and well-expressed process, and we just need to practice it. As we practice it deeper and deeper, we will free ourselves from the emotions and anchor our consciousness in that intuitive awareness of God's love and joy.